to take a moment to let everyone know a little bit about our set that we have here on site. We are displaying some artifacts here on the side that you saw behind Dr. G. We have artifacts that have been excavated from our sites. On the far left, the spouted bowl that you see there was excavated at Tal el Umeri. In the middle, that loom weight is one of the ones that Dr. Kent Bramlett was talking about that comes from Khirbat al-Balua. And right next to that, or right behind that, was excavated from Khirbat Ataruz, and you'll see the horizontal painted lines there that Dr. G was talking about. Of course, we've got our jars, and our centerpiece is our pithos. And moving on to the right-hand side are pieces from our donated collections here at the Center for Near Eastern Archaeology at La Sierra University. So we are proud to be able to display these artifacts for you, and yes, thank you. Now, our final venture abroad is a culmination of the preservation and education surrounding the tremendous archaeological efforts in Jordan, the Madaba Regional Archaeological Museum Project. This presentation is brought to us by two of the co-directors of the project, Dr. Suzanne Richard, and Doug Clark. Suzanne is professor of history, archaeology, and theology at Gannon University, as well as director of the Collins Institute for Archaeological Research. And Doug, of course, is the director of the Center for Near Eastern Archaeology and former director of Madaba Plains Project at Tal el Umeri.
So do I hear Suzanne? Is Suzanne here?
I'm here, Doug.
Okay,
I'm coming from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Right, so you're a little ahead of us in time, but we'll catch up, maybe. We'll try. Thank you, Suzanne, for joining us. Suzanne and I, along with two other colleagues, you'll see pictures in a minute, have been working for several years on what we call MRAMP, or Madaba Regional Archaeological Museum Project. And you can see by all of the logos on this introductory slide that we benefit from a number of contributors. You see the universities along that first row. Well, you see the MRAMP logo at the top. You'll see where that came from in a minute. And then you see the university ones, and then you see Jordanian and Italian agencies, and then at the bottom, the United States Agency for International Development, ACOR, the American Center of Research, SHEP, that's a long name, but it has to do with sustainable cultural heritage by involving local communities. That's what it's about. So this has been, and then I should say on the very right is the logo for the Ambassadors Fund and the Cultural Antiquities Task Force of the U.S. Department of State. So we have been benefiting from your tax dollars. We want to thank you for that. Investments, we hope, in making a big difference in preserving the past. So Susanna and I will be sharing our way through this slide presentation. You see that Madaba is in the center of the sites we've been talking about. All of these are the 4 sites that we're working at in Jordan. And Madaba, in many ways, is a kind of a culmination. Both Suzanne and I work in the region around Madaba. So all of our artifacts go to the museum that we are working to upgrade. So that becomes important at a personal as well as an academic level. And we stay, what do you think, Suzanne, about Madaba? Is that I mean, we have so many friends there now. You go there, you shop a lot. So you head straight for Yusuf's shop.
I certainly do. And then, of course, we stay at the MRAMP Hotel on weekends from the dig. But when we're working at MRAMP, we're at the MRAMP Hotel. It is a second home, let's face it, Doug.
Yeah, very much so. And there are the 4 co-directors. This photo does not include Bassem Mahmoud, who is with the Department of Antiquities of Jordan, who is our coordinator, our on-site coordinator. But you can see there the universities, Perugia University, Sapienza University, Andrea Palcaro, and Marta D'Andrea, along with Suzanne and myself. We have attempted to involve the local community in lots of ways. And you can see in this sequence of photos, not only the directors, including Bassem Mahmoud in the upper left, but you can see the teams. A team in 2016, 2017, and part of 2017, our good friend became a little ill and was treated very kindly by this boy with a rose. So there was a very nice community engagement here. And then a larger team, which included restoration folks as well. So we enlarged the team and the group and were able to accomplish more. Suzanne, this is an overview both of us are very well acquainted with. What do we see in this image?
Okay, basically, and anybody who knows Madaba knows this is the downtown central district. And so we see, the Archaeological Park East, West, the Heritage Trail in red, and of course, St. George's Church that everybody knows. Now, we've been doing most of our work, all of our work really, in Archaeological Park West, where we've been excavating and restoring the late 19th century buildings here. But that's our focus.
Yeah.
However, we're hoping, we have these wonderful goals to make this entire area a museum district. And the museum we're planning will be built over these Ottoman era buildings.
It might be interesting to say at this point too, Suzanne, we'll talk about it more later, but the virtual tours that we are working to create involve three, in fact, only three of these locations: the Archaeological Park East, the Archaeological Park West, and St. George's Church, or the MAP Church, those of you who have been to Madaba. And then here is a more close-up, and you can see on this image that we have several time periods represented right on the surface. There's the Roman pavement or cardo from the 2nd century. There are several 6th century, what we call Byzantine period structures, the church, what is called the Burnt Palace. It has 2 wings to it, one at the top of this picture and one at the bottom, one kind of in the middle. And then there are 2 early 20th century buildings, an old clinic and another shop, probably was a shop of some kind. In any case, those will function with or as part of the new museum. And then it's at the bottom of the slide. Suzanne mentioned this is where we're going to be building the new museum. It will come up over the top of this late 19th century settlement. Our logo came right off of the floor of the burnt palace. You can actually see in the inserted image on the left, the kind of door post holders. People would open the doors inward, and then you would be greeted by this medallion with these welcoming sandals. We love that idea so much that we used it as our logo, not only for our project, but for the new museum when it becomes a reality too. Suzanne, what did it look like when we first started?
It's hard to believe, and when you see the next pictures, you'll be amazed. But when we first saw it this way, we were, put back. I don't know even how to explain it. I didn't think we could do anything about it. But this is the way it looked, overgrown, not having been attended at all by anyone. And there you see the after result there.
So this has been, since this particular part of the Archaeological Park West will be the ground floor for the new museum, it's really important that this is clear and clean and consolidated. And so the next picture actually shows some of our activity with scaffolding and so on, attempting to consolidate the stone walls. We have a lot more work to do, But you can also see the buildings that we have labeled, the buildings and courtyards, and there's actually going to be one more, a building 9 in the center. But in any case, this gives you an idea. Most of what you see on the left-hand side is from the 1880s, something of that nature. And what you see on the right-hand side moves into the 20th century. So we've got a bit of a time span here across our location. But it's been interesting to re-uncover this because part of this was excavated several years ago, a couple decades.
And Doug, I just might mention that building on the top left, we're hoping to demolish it. We're hoping the DOA will demolish it because really our plan of the museum includes that space.
So one of the important components of MRAMP is that it is community archaeology, which means we work with partners, we work with stakeholders. And the range of stakeholders is represented on this list that you can see. But each one of these components on the list represents a series, a collection of others. But what we want to emphasize with this, again, building on the notion of community archaeology in order to preserve the past, is that this is a wide range of community entities, engagements. You'll notice on the very bottom of the list, citizens and families. Madaba was uninhabited as a city up until the 1880s. There were plenty of Bedouin around, but it wasn't a city. And it was a group of families that moved from the south that came to Madaba and actually built in the 1880s what you see. And so in the picture on the left, you see house number 2, which belonged to the Owe Marine family. And in the picture on the right, overlooking his grandparents' home, is the third generation, Ghalib Owe Marine. So he sees us working in his grandparents' house. And it's so much fun because, Suzanne, what does he bring regularly?
Well, tea and cookies.
And American coffee, I think.
And American coffee, he does like that. It really is quite stunning when you think about it, that these buildings on the left were built by the original, tribes that came up, including his family, and that he's still living in this area. It's just amazing.
Okay, so some businesses. I mentioned Yusuf earlier. We're going to scoot through these slides fairly quickly. Some of the projects we've done with workshops, training courses, again, part of community archaeology. We want these people to be the museum curators of the future, to be the people who manage it. We also have done a couple of workshops and resulting manuals. This one is almost finished in both English and Arabic. In fact, probably within another couple of weeks, should be completely done and will be useful in the museums of Jordan and elsewhere. We've also connected with university students. This is a group, well, you see them in different configurations here, of architecture students from the American University of Madaba. And this is a large organization, the Talal Abu Ghazala organization. It's called the Knowledge Organization, and they have been partners too. And then I think, Suzanne, we got to thinking about the current museum and what to do about it. And so these are a couple of pictures on the exterior. Maybe you should say something about what we've got on the interior.
Well, just to preface this with the remark that we have received 2 ambassador grants, and the first one had to do with repurposing the current museum, which is what you see here. Both the Antiquities Museum, which was on the left, and then the Folklore Museum on the right. So this is the original plan. And I must say that thanks to COVID and other things, the plan has changed somewhat, but at least we are able to put a storeroom on the left and make an interim museum on the right. And we have to do this, and it's important because the Department of Antiquities needs to have a museum there until we build the final museum. So the plan has changed somewhat, But let's take a look at it. You can see the Folklore Museum on the left, and there's the Antiquities Museum. So there's 2 buildings basically, and we had planned for everything to be storage. But look at this. You might not appreciate it, but this is a fantastic result here. And we're not even there. We are directing this remotely. New lighting, new fixtures. The floor has been fixed, the roof, everything, railings, and the stairway. So a lot is happening. It's amazing, Doug. I would say we don't even have to go to Jordan because we can accomplish all these things remotely. And this here, what you see is our second ambassador's grant, which really is an offshoot of the last one. And it's, as you can see, Madaba Digital Documentation and Tourism. And the idea was to collaborate with the US State Department, SciArc, and other entities to continue doing what our purpose is in MRAMP, and that is to preserve and protect the antiquities in Madaba. So this is going to be done virtually. And again, we're doing it remotely. Right. We have 13 people lined up already, and they're going to be trained, and they're going to do the scanning of photogrammetry on the ground. We're going to have drones, and then we're going to have storytellers as well as, guides, putting it all together, and you will all be able to see it online.
And now you will see,
probably at the end of January.
Thank you, Suzanne. And now we will see a rendition of video, 3D video of what we hope the museum will look like.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Clark and Dr. Richard. We have a question here for you guys regarding the area around the museum. Do we know if there are antiquities beneath that area? What happens when future buildings are built there?
That is an extremely good question. In fact, it reminds me that this is not just for Madaba. This is for the entire region, from southern Amman all the way down to what at least some descriptions call the border of Amman and Moab, down in the Wadi Mujib, and from the desert to the Dead Sea. So it's a large area with lots of excavations, and all of their artifacts come here. But what we'll find in Madaba, that's where the question specifically was directed, has in part already been excavated. We know that that in Madaba itself, we have materials going probably back to the New Stone Age, Neolithic, So we're talking several millennia BC, but certainly to the early Bronze Age. So we're talking into the third and fourth millennia BC. So there are remains underneath. In fact, who can tell how many feet, how many meters below what you just saw where the museum is going, that really there are archaeological remains. We anticipate, as we found at Ameri, that there were 8 meters. So we're talking 25 feet of accumulated occupational debris. So when you have that, we know we'll have that in Madaba too. When the people moved into Madaba, they didn't know what to do to build houses, and they asked, and they said, they were told, just dig, you're going to find lots of building stone. Well, the archaeologist in us was really frightened about that, because there goes our archaeological context. But in the process, they excavated not only stones to build houses, they came across the mosaics. And there are, I don't know how many, there's well over a dozen churches in Madaba with the mosaic floors, and then houses, the burnt palace. So it would have taken us longer to find those had the original occupants in the late 19th century not done this.